His body was shutting down, unresponsive from hypothermia in the rain and dark on Mt Lafayette. His life was slipping away. He had only minutes left. But heroic rescuers had headed out, risking their own lives. Would they reach him in time? I'll read you the press release by New Hampshire Fishing Game. Multiple unprepared hikers rescued on Mt Lafayette in Franconia. Friday, June 19th, approximately 8 p.m., New Hampshire Fishing Game was notified of a group of hikers at the summit of Mt Lafayette who were suffering from hypothermia in cold, wet, and rainy conditions. The hikers said they had no visibility, no lights, and no warm clothing. A call was made to the AMC and Greenleaf Hut crew on Mt Lafayette to have two crew members head up and assist. The AMC crew headed up towards the summit of Mt Lafayette and located the hikers 15 miles below the summit. One hiker, a 19-year-old male from New Jersey, was unresponsive and suffering from severe hypothermia. The second hiker, also a 19-year-old male of New Jersey, was cold, wet, but still alert and also suffering from hypothermia. The AMC crew began the process of warming the hikers by providing shelter and dry clothing. Due to the conditions of the hikers, calls to the Pemi Valley Search and Rescue Team and the Lakes Region Search and Rescue Team were made to assist in carrying the unresponsive hiker from the summit to Greenleaf Hut. While responding to the first call, a second rescue call came in on Mt Lafayette for another group of hikers who were wet, cold, and also suffering from hypothermia. The second group of hikers are about 1.1 miles from the trailhead. Rescuers who were responding to the first call were able to provide lights, dry clothing, and assist them back to the trailhead. Rescuers arrived at the unresponsive person's location at approximately 1:10 a.m. He was then carried down to the Greenleaf Hut, arriving at 2:55 a.m. Once the hut, rescuers were able to get shelter from the weather and warm the person. Unfortunately, while carrying him in inclement weather, a volunteer was severely injured and needed to be helped back to the trailhead. Over the next couple hours, rescuers treated the group of hikers for hypothermia and cold-related injuries. While at the Greenleaf Hut, the person's condition began improving and he regained consciousness. Once the group was warm and dry, the rescuers assisted him down the old bridle path, arriving at the trailhead at 7:55 a.m. The person was transported from that trailhead by Linwood ambulance to Littleton Regional Hospital for further medical treatment. Mountain weather is subject to rapid changes and extreme conditions. Be prepared by checking the high summits forecast at the Mount Washington Observatory site, mountwashington.org. Hikers are encouraged to be prepared for their trek, to include packing the 10 essential items: map, compass, warm clothing, extra food and water, headlamp, fire starter, first aid kit, whistle, rain, wind jackets and pants, and a knife. For further information, please visit hikesafe.com. I also have a press release by the Pemi Valley Search and Rescue Team. Mt Lafayette. Hypothermia is always a concern in the whites at any time of year. At 8 p.m. on June 19th, New Hampshire Fish and Game was alerted to a group of hikers near the summit of Mt Lafayette suffering from hypothermia and lacking visibility, lights, and warm clothing. The AMC hut crew provided an initial response to reach and warm up the hikers, one of whom was unresponsive. While the Pemi team and members of the Lake Region Search and Rescue mustered to hike up and assist in carrying the hiker from the summit to the Greenleaf Hut. While en route, another call came in for another group of hikers also affected by hypothermia, 1.1 miles up the trail. dispatched rescuers responded to the initial call were able to meet up with these hikers on the way and provide lights, dry clothing, and assist them back to the trailhead. Rescue teams reached the unresponsive hiker near the summit shortly after 1 a.m. He was then carried down to the Greenleaf hut, arriving at 2:55 a.m. Once at the hut, rescuers were able to get shelter from the weather and over the next several hours provide treatment for hypothermia and cold-related injuries. Thankfully, the initially unresponsive hiker began improving and regained consciousness and was able to be assisted to the trailhead by approximately 8 a.m., where he was transported by ambulance. With our highly variable and extreme weather, we recommend always bringing the 10 essentials, including headlamps and extra clothing, as well as checking the higher summits forecasts from the Mount Washington Observatory when hiking in the Whites. Stay safe out there. Stories like this remind me of how quickly things can go wrong in the White Mountains, whether it's a change in the weather or just a simple mistake, and suddenly the person's situation can seem beyond hope. But I'm also reminded of heroic volunteers who risk their own lives, going out into the rain, the dark, dangerous weather, dangerous conditions to save strangers. So I'm thankful for them, and I'm thankful for a personal God who cares about us and who meets us at the point of our need. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you again soon. I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Psalm 121, 1 and 2.